welcome to the show. It's Ukraine Update here with the Shills. We got Commander McMillan in with us as always. We've got Slava in with us as always. We've got a couple people missing, but they might be popping in soon. You know how it is around here. It's kind of like a pub. You never know who's coming in the door. But we've got James from Why Ukraine in today, and he's brought a friend. So, James, welcome back, and tell us all about your buddy Brian and why we are happy to have him here.
Yeah. So, as you guys know, I am now a soldier in the Ukrainian army, specifically in the Ukrainian drone force, and my unit's called Angry Birds. Sorry, Birds of Fury. We don't want we don't want a copyright conflict. Yeah. But it translates in Ukrainians, Liptahi, Slava, you probably know. And so as you guys know, I've been doing fundraising, and a lot of my viewers have wanted me to get into the drone technology space, and all the way back to like a year ago. And so in the course of doing research on that, I came across Technology for Ukraine, Technology United for Ukraine. So if you guys go to Technology for Ukraine, I have it right in front of me. What am I saying?
technologyforukraine.com.
Thank you. I was going to say .org.
Technology United for Ukraine, but
Yeah. And so, I knew about them all the way back last April or May, but I wasn't, until I had something concrete to offer, I wasn't ready to. So I approached Brian, right after I, joined the military, and said, hey, let's start working together. And so now we are, my unit and the engineers in my unit, and actually also the people who build our drones, are starting to work directly and closely with the volunteer engineers on the American side from Technology for Ukraine, and it's already bearing fruit. You guys, I only joined the military in November, guys, so it's just happening very rapidly, and it's really turning into a fantastic thing. So, Brian, do you want to talk about Technology for Ukraine and what it is and what you guys do?
So, about a year and 4 months ago, I started an all-volunteer group of scientists, engineers, technologists, or just anybody who wanted to help out, but primarily with the focus of bringing innovative technologies to the Ukrainian military. So we work with various other like institutes. Like we've had conversations with different organizations like Lincoln Labs for MIT. Yeah, but as individuals, we also work in groups on projects for Ukraine. So a broad swath of projects, and I basically loan out my engineers. We're a nonprofit. Nobody seeks patents, profit, nothing. It's all done and given directly to the Ukrainian armed forces. We're not really manufacturers, so we will hand over the designs, and then we work directly with the frontline troops to evolve it. So there are Ukrainian soldiers, they're not engineers, that are in our different R&D groups, basically instructing us, because what's in your head, about what would be practical for the battlefield when you're an engineer and you get it's not practical. And so they help keep my engineers on course by this direct lateral communication. The Ukrainian government has been, and they'll be phenomenal with that. They have not stepped in my way. No bureaucracy. They have been absolutely amazing. And we have unbelievable access, I guess is the best way to say it.
Yeah. So
very cool.
We can talk about what we're doing. I'm fundraising. So one thing we're specifically collaborating on, two things really. First of all, is innovation on our own drone systems in Angry Birds, but also fiber optic drones and scaling up building fiber optic drones. Okay, so first of all, I think Brian will talk about this, but if you are an engineer of any stripe, okay, and you would like to help or volunteer, go to Technology for Ukraine, sign up on there, and eventually we'll find a spot for you. And if you signed up before and you didn't get a response, well, now new things are opening up. So
we should say, if you're a flat Earth engineer, they don't need you.
Yeah, maybe not. Who knows?
Hey, look, some of your quirkiest, most insane engineers, like, they might be the best.
Seriously. And then my unit, we are fiber optic drones are not our primary thing, but we are ramping up manufacturing of these 4 other units on the front line. And so if you go to my own site, which is whyukraine.com, I've just started a fundraiser for that specifically. So if you guys feel like donating towards fiber optic drones here in Ukraine, you can do it there.
We'll make that today's Boom Boom Fund as well then. So cool. I'll take the Boom Boom Fund from today and throw it off into the pile with you there.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the advancements in technology. We've had this discussion on the show a few times now. But Brian, I mean, you're in the thick of it then. It's crazy the way this is all playing out compared to any previous conflict in humanity. This is a completely different... It's changed the rules of the game, hasn't it?
Yeah, and I think we've done it in a way that is...
Commander's not sure of my comment, but I mean the way that people that aren't quite so military can now actually help and stuff. And
that's what I want to go with, is that kind of block, that, the crypto, the blockchain. It's just everything. Now we can do things decentralized. And what we've done as a group is decentralized. And we're a bunch of people who got together and said, you know what? We have skills, we have talent, we're self-funded. I have very wealthy engineers. Some of them own big corporations. Some work for some of their senior executives or R&D people at very large corporations like, Northrop Grumman or Microsoft, you name it. We get all these.
Somebody from Boeing, though.
What's that?
Boeing. Maybe not Boeing.
Yeah.
Well, we've had, that's a little bit of a landmine, right?
A little bit.
They all came together, and we basically were working initially with certain organizations in the Ukrainian government, and they gave us projects. I funded all these engineers, and we just had people come in, and we have a process you go through to get in. We're like an onion, right? So nobody's really in the inner part. So we do have our OPSEC stuff that we do, but they all can now go in and they begin to work on advanced weapon systems of all different types of nature. It could be jamming systems, it could be drones, fixed wing, you name it. And we have all kinds of others. We have one guy who's a Navy SEAL, former Navy SEAL. You'll see him on my channel Matthew Kritikin, my operations manager, which would probably be a conflict interest, but he's in the Ukrainian military. Very influential person, but he creates the reality for us. So he's always there to say, no, that's not a good idea. That weapon system will not work. And, so we try to bring a lot of reality to the projects. And again, all these volunteers, former military to, just your average engineering company that, I know does HVAC stuff, because we need everything. We need
You'd be surprised what turns out to be, relevant and necessary. Maybe you think you have a skill that doesn't. I mean, I don't know. Maybe if you're a Play-Doh engineer, but who knows?
Right.
Maybe you can
transfer it over to C4, right? Maybe
exactly.
But that's the thing is people's knowledge. You'll be surprised. We have a lot of people, and we have them kind of in a dormant state. And then when an issue comes up, we'd call them and say, hey, we're confused about something. I got that. I know exactly how to solve that problem. So we have a lot of volunteers, and not all of them are working on a project all the time. They might be an advisor or be pulled into a project.
Right.
Yeah. Cool stuff.
Very much. Very much.
Yeah.
Switching around to a couple of headlines and stuff here. I'm going to organize a few of the shout outs that have come in already. And I do have to check my son to make sure everything's good. He was a little excited before the show, and I want to make sure he's settled. So I'm going to turn it over to Slavi here if she wants to bring a few headlines to the table, and we'll get ourselves caught up a bit.
All right. So as you guys know, I'm in a fire zone in Los Angeles, and for the past week, we've been burning. But Ukraine came through, and Zelensky said that he offered to send 150 firefighters to Los Angeles, and that just shows how much Ukraine is helping during their own obvious Russian invasion. So I thought that was pretty cool to start with. Unfortunately, not such a good news. This morning in Kiev, it was hit with missiles, and it was right in the center. Unfortunately, the targets include shopping mall, business center, and metro station, and a water pipeline. And Ukrainian air defense, they did intercept 24 out of 39 drones and 2 of the 4 missiles. And then on previous year, on January 17th, Zaporozhye was hit terribly, as well as Kryvyi Rih. So that's unfortunate, very tragic news. I also want to say some good news that Ukraine, has hit the Russian S-400 radar equipment in Belgorod Oblast, which is, pretty good news. It's Russian air defense system that we took out. And yeah,
that's really huge. I think that might be the first actual confirmed hit, first or second, of an S-400.
I think it is confirmed because it was wiped out from I guess some kind of radar system.
Yep, it's amazing. I didn't even have time to read the article yet, but that's amazing stuff.
Yeah, those are a very strategic thing there, right, Commander?
Yeah, it's technically, I would call it the top of the line air defense missile they have. They actually have an S-500, but it's still in the experimental stages, so there's only like 1 or 2 operational for testing purposes.
Mm.
Are they quite good, the S-400 air defense systems?
It's arguably comparable to a U.S. Patriot system. I don't think it's quite as accurate, but it has longer range.
Yeah, maybe like a half step down from the Patriot PAC-3.
The key difference it has, though, is that they figured out a way to adapt the surface-to-air missile to use as a surface-to-surface missile. So they've been using those in the S-300s to lob missiles at Ukraine.
Okay.
And the other thing is
how
that
expensive that missile must be. That's kind of a waste of money, if you want my opinion.
Well, but they've stopped. Now that Ukraine has the F-16s, they've stopped using the S-300s here because they're holding them back in reserve because they think they're going to need them potentially against F-16s. So that's one immediate benefit of having F-16s here is we've stopped getting attacked by the S-300s, which is one of the most difficult missiles to intercept, actually, because they're so small.
Is that what hit Kiev this morning? Why they couldn't?
No, I don't know. So it's one of those things like that's just they swarm, and
a lot of what they're using now are air-launched cruise missiles, basically.
Yeah.
So they take strategic bombers and they fly them out of, like Ufa and things out in the Urals.
Yeah, fucking
And
Murmansk.
they fly in, get to a launch envelope position, fire the missiles, and then turn around and go back. So they're never exposed to being intercepted, the actual launching aircraft themselves.
Right.
Yeah, and ironically, those the planes that they're using, I think they're like the Tu-22 Tu-22s. Those were
are
originally
Tu-95s, which is like
Yeah.
a 1950 airplane.
Yeah, but some of them were actually designed and even built originally in Ukraine, and Ukraine actually gave them up.
Oh, that sucks.
Gave them to Russia in the 1990s under the Budapest Memorandum.
Oh, right.
And now because they're strategic bombers, and now they're being used against us.
That sucks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Liam Wakefield just said the backfire. That's the NATO designation, the I think Tu-22 backfire.
Tu-22M.
Right.
Thank you.
Tu-22 was the blinder, which I don't think anybody's still using.
No. You're right. That's right.
There was a question in the live chat there from Ronnie Vranken for Brian. Any military service in your background?
Oh yeah, Army, 12 years. Yep. But I'm a very subordinate to the 05 here. He's my. I was just.
Try my boots, young man.
Yes, sir. I was just an E5, so that was my service. I was a medic.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
Really? I didn't know that. Cool.
Yeah, 4 years active. The rest of the time, National Guard.
Yeah, around here, Macmillan usually outranks everyone, so don't feel bad. It always happens.
Commander.
So a couple of shout outs here. We got UTV and Ham giving a direct donation there. Big shout there. Thanks, UTV and Ham. It's a $15 direct donation for priority funding. So we'll throw that in a Boom Boom Fund, and that'll go over to James there after the show. Thanks, UTV and Ham. We also got Dunk on You 23 coming in with a $35 direct donation into the Boom Boom Fund again. Love it, Dunk on You 23. Big shout out there. Thank you. Dunk on You 23 also gifted out 5 Shills memberships. And Johnny Negregard come in with Norwegian Kroner super chat here as well. Hello, Shills. Slava Ukraini. Heroam Slava. Great words. Hey, where the hell's my thing? There it is. Okay.
There you go.
Yeah. Technology is failing me left, right, and center here. And then Commander Prankster had thrown in a direct $20 tip as well for the Boom Boom Fund. So huge thanks in the chat to all the donators and contributors, because it makes a difference. And they're all today are going to the Boom Boom Fund for James. Where did you say it's going again today? I've already screwed this up.
This is specifically for the fiber optic drone manufacturing fund. So we are setting up in ourselves and working with 2 strategic partners here in Ukraine to begin mass production of fiber drones.
Cool.
So we're taking the designs, the specs created and software actually created by the engineers and technology for Ukraine, and taking them over to our production and ramping that up. And that's what this is for. So it's not to buy a specific drone, it's to build as many as we can, because that's what's needed right now. And then, we'll iterate and we'll improve on them as we go along. But that's what this fund is for. And that goes directly to my unit to build those drones.
Cool.
And they'll probably, I don't know, they'll probably go to Kursk and Pokrovsk, to be honest.
And I'll just say one thing. We started this program about a year ago. One of our members found an article on a Russian fiber drone, one of their very first models. It was very crude. And realized that this was going to be something they were going to build more of in the future.
Right.
So we started a year ago experimenting. It's complicated because you got to get the weight right. You have a spool, and it's complicated. And, we're now on probably our 4th or 5th generation. We're constantly updating them. And now with the Birds of Fury, we'll be able to send these out in rapid amounts and just learn. The idea is to create a lateral transfer of information right from the frontline soldier right to the, doctor of engineering, so there is this reality stream that's happening without bureaucracy. It's one of our models. Outside of bureaucracy, we try to eliminate bureaucracy for the evolution of these weapon systems.
Yep. Shorten that loop as much as possible, and it's so important right now. As soon as Ukraine develops something, Russia copies it and builds it mass scale and back and forth like that. And we on my stream that I just had, and also Combat Veteran Reacts, there was an article come out, I think in the New York Times maybe just recently, about how the CIA has been funding drone production since September in Ukraine. They made it sound like the CIA was responsible for every freaking drone in Ukraine, which is ridiculous. It's more like the CIA is trying to get in so that they can learn from Ukrainians is really the real situation. But the other point that was made in this New York Times article is that there's a lot of think tanks that are saying, man, the U.S. defense technology development cycle is not appropriate for future wars. So this whole thing of like years or decades and one big company, Lockheed Martin, does everything is just not going to work anymore. And I mean, Ukraine's model, which is the exact opposite of that, which is like 1,000 freaking little tiny basement companies all tinkering away.
Yeah, they're
also
running it like a startup. It's quick and go now, right?
Yeah,
but that's true.
Yeah.
The bad side of that, though, is also that how do you scale up manufacturing with still maintaining that innovation edge? And that is the crucial, very sensitive place that Ukraine is in right now.
Yeah, you lose
frankly,
the economy of scale.
With.
Yeah.
What? Yeah.
Commander, I wanted to turn to you on the back of this. Like, are modern militaries learning from this? Are they like, oh wow, do we have some catching up to do now? Right?
I think people in almost every major military right now are watching what's going on in Ukraine with very, very focused interest, because the changes are coming so rapidly. It's kind of like, and we've alluded to this on the show before, it's like watching what happened in World War I, where, at the start of the war, the Germans have like 12 civilian airplanes, which are used, they're unarmed and they're only used for short range reconnaissance purposes. And by the end, you've got strategic bombers, you've got fighters, you've got ground attack, specialized ground attack aircraft, all of this in the space of 4 years. Yeah. And I think we're seeing that in a much more accelerated situation right now. What's going on in Ukraine, change is coming so rapidly and so fast. Mm-hmm. If you're not staying on top of almost day-to-day changes in the operational world, you're going to be so far behind the power curve if you get involved in a big fight.
Seriously. Right? And this is like alarm bells are going off all over defense departments in every country about this, I think. By the way, I just want to make mention, the Ukraine mission just bought a bunch of memberships for people, which is really cool. And I just wanted to thank you guys, Ukraine mission, that's Britt, who's been a guest on this show many times.
And will be again.
He's a personal friend of mine. We both started at the international. He has a lot more combat experience than I do, that's for sure. But we both started at the International Legion at the same time here in Ukraine. He was the first person that I met waiting at the bus stop, and I just love that you guys have helped get his channel and his fundraising going so much, and it's just so important. And I'm talking to everybody here on our show and everybody in the chat and everybody viewing. Thank you from my heart.
And he's like a proper orc slayer. Well, worth the support, man. Oh yeah.
For real. Do
you guys mind if I add something? What you guys? One way I explain like what we're doing, because we're very deep into a lot of things, but what we're doing is how NATO would fight with billion-dollar weapons and incredible, technologies. You can go right in, knock out the command and control of. It's not happening for you, Ukraine. What we're developing, what we're doing, is proxy war weapon systems that are inexpensive, designed to get around some of the high technology you'll see with a country like Russia. Obviously, the U.S. is going to have it's going to be a much more difficult task to try to use some of our technologies, because they're already, maybe not in every case, but they're thinking ahead on some of this stuff. They've already developed countermeasures. But it really is a proxy war concept that's developing. And the other thing about, I guess, and I don't want to say too much. I want to be careful how much I say, but for example,
right?
About the CIA and them being involved. We have a Navy SEAL in our organization doing some things. You'll see him on my channel, Matthew Creedican, and he's doing things over there. And, a lot of companies are just trying to understand where they fit in. So guys like Northrop Grumman, all of these guys, because a $2,000 drone is meaningless to them, right? 10% of that is nothing. They want $2 million drones. So with our big military industrial complex, it doesn't understand exactly how do we fit into this type of proxy war. They're giving them usually old vehicles and, tanks and stuff. So they're not making the most modern ones, and they're getting so trying to understand where they fit in, I think, has been a bit of a struggle. And I think the same is true with some of our intelligence agencies, trying to understand, how do we communicate to learn what we need to know for future wars? And communication is something that is evolving over there. It seems like it should be very cut and dry. Well,
no, boy, don't we
I
know?
want to be careful what rabbit holes I go in. I don't want to say too many things, but there's go ahead, James. Maybe you can elaborate.
I mean, things are just evolving so quickly. Just imagine they built an army basically from the ground up, starting in 2014. They had like 7,000 people, in the army, essentially. And even in 2014, the army was not prepared at all. So you've got all these guys coming out of the woodwork, officers who, maybe they had like a 2-week course in college, and now they're qualified to be an officer 20 years ago. Or they were trained in the Soviet Union, or they are essentially corrupt, and they bought their, they didn't want to get up on the front lines, and they had some money, and they kind of bribed somebody on the back end to get an officer position, which is very, very common here. And so you've got a lot of, you've got really good people, really good commanders, and then you've got some real shitheads, frankly. And it's a huge problem. And as a society, it's this whole transition. There's an internal war and an external war. We're fighting the Russians within as well as the Russians without. And
James, can I say something real quick? And I just want to put a point out there to everybody who thinks a lot of corruption. I have to say, very wealthy people in my organization, we go over to Ukraine often. Never has anybody asked for a bribe from us. Never has anybody gotten away and tried to use some type of muscle. Nothing. I commend the Ukrainian government and the military for being so absolutely open for us. And all these things exist all over, even in the U.S. Corruption is just a part of human nature. But I have to say, I've had very positive experiences.
Mm-hmm. Me too. Now, it's interesting because the flip side of this cultural, corruption since the war, and especially since what they call the Great War, the full-scale invasion now, it's any sort of corruption is so heavily stigmatized socially that, you go to the bank or you make some deal with somebody, you sell something, you buy something, they count out every freaking penny in front of you. They're very careful to make sure that you understand that you are not getting ripped off, and because there's such a high, social stigma against that. And I actually know units where they had a person who had maybe some questionable past corruption issues. Were they, weren't they? And the units themselves like refused to serve under that particular commander and made their life so much hell that they were basically had to like transfer, essentially.
Yeah.
So like at a grassroots level, there's a very strong impetus against that. But you've got two levels of society, right? You've got the grassroots, the normal people, and then you've got the oligarchs and want to be oligarchs, and they have the money, but it's this struggle that's happening. And I would dare say that the same thing is happening in America right now as well, in a certain way,
Yeah. Very much so. Very much so. There was a question in the chat here for you, James. Sarah was asking, are you a Canadian American?
Yeah, that's interesting. A little bit of I don't know. Maybe. Okay, so I did.
At this point in history, James, pick one. No, I'm kidding.
Right. Here's an interesting thing, though. I spent 15 years in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and it's a very interesting thing. The New Mexican accent, which has a lot of like a Hispanic accent in there, like they say a lot, and I think that I picked up a little New Mexican is probably what you're actually hearing there.
I don't know. You got very much TV talk. You have very great pronunciation, like me. I have no dialect whatsoever. You couldn't pick up a what? All my words go to barbed wire.
He says 3 words, and you want to give him a Philly cheesesteak because it just seems appropriate. Right?
Hey, I'm from Rhode Island, over here. That's a totally different accent. Hey,
I'm walking here.
I'm over here. What's going on? Hey, you want me to call Vinny? I'll be there. Clean this whole thing up over there in Ukraine. We go over there with the guys. I'm telling you.
Wow,
if you close your eyes, you'll see Joe Pesci, right?
My little high pitch voice, I guess. I don't know, gravelly to high pitch.
Oh, that was funny. That was good. Let's see here. We've got the Ukraine mission. Well, we were just talking about our buddy Britt there, gifted out 10 memberships. So huge thanks for that. Remember, if you're the last one to get a gifted membership around here, you get the bar tab. So submit your address and I'll make sure to get it right off to you. And then we had Petra Olsen come in with 129 Swedish kroners with love to Ukraine. And with love to the Boom Boom Fund, it goes. Thank you very much, Petra. I think I'm caught up. Let me just triple check here because there's all kinds of different services people can use, and I got to make sure I get them all. Okay, yeah, we're good.
I've got a quick question for James and Brian. Thus far, we've primarily been talking about technological change. What do you see occurring in terms of what I would call operational or doctrinal change in terms of how new pieces of equipment are implemented to work with the rest of existing equipment?
Boy, Brian, you know who could talk about that?
Oh, my man. Yeah. Well, yeah. So I don't want to say too much stuff, okay. So there is a person in our organization that works on that very thing is understanding weapons platforms, integration. Not only that, what is the combined arms concept for Ukraine? We went in with the US combined arms, NATO combined arms that had magic, there's magic in the sky, and there's just such a limitation on what they could actually get and utilize. An M1 Abrams is an unbelievable tank when the magic in the sky and everything is giving it data and it's got all these, but then it's just a really heavy tank that sinks in the mud during the muddy season, right? I mean, so some of our technologies don't translate properly. And then you have to find out new ways to customize them, to utilize them. And they're going to work differently with the Ukrainian military doctrine than they ever would with ours. And again, it's what does combined arms look like from their eyes? And that's something that's being worked on feverishly and constantly upgraded. But yeah, I think there was a large disappointment with our concept because we tried to shove it down their throat. Like, this is how you do it. Well, they don't have the air superiority. They don't have like the Area 51 thing that's flying up around there. You know, I mean, they don't have any of that. So we have to rethink again, a proxy war. What we're learning is how do we fight a proxy war? And Ukraine is a perfect example of that. And this would be true of other nations that decide to poke at a smaller nation that are allies with us. We're going to have another proxy war with different technological challenges.
Yeah. So I agree with everything that's Brian is saying. Let me give you 3 points that I think I can talk about, but they're edging on OPSEC, so I have to be very careful.
Right.
As I'm
I get that.
Okay. So, you know, of course, I am in the drone force, and as you guys know, like, so every unit, the drone unit in Ukraine basically has like their own manufacturer, their own little drone lab somewhere in some basement somewhere making drones. And the same is true for my unit as well. So the drone force is trying to kind of consolidate that. Okay. Because it's very difficult to scale under that model. Right. So, and then one thing that we are doing is cross training. So instead of one unit over here only knows how to operate this kind of drone, and another unit over here only knows how to operate that kind of drone. Now, which I think is a very good thing, now the units are cross-training on different drone systems and drone models within a specific area of operations or set of tasks. Okay. Second thing, ATP Geopolitical. So Johnny Pierce, you know, talking about this, he was maybe it was yesterday, or the day before, talking about the Keir Starmer coming in and this 100-year agreement and stuff. And he had a very interesting sort of realization where he said, I can't remember, I'd have to go back and watch it. He was reading the article and he said, oh, maybe Great Britain is going to bring their trainers into Ukraine. Yeah.
Like running shoe train? No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Yeah, but well, no, we have plenty of those here. You know, so instead of Ukrainian troops being trained outside of, you know, being sent to Poland or Great Britain or freaking Kalamazoo, so moving trainers and doing the training here inside of Ukraine. And when that happens, I'm not going to say if, I'm going to say when that happens. Probably it'd be Great Britain, Norway, some others, who knows. That is going to, this is leading into your question, Commander. See, the piece of training that has been missing, I would argue. Oh, Sakai is joining us, by the way. The piece of training that has been missing, I would argue, is officer training. Yeah, there's not enough officer training, and so the recruits on the ground are getting trained, and so they have a much better idea of how to operate. Remember, I talked earlier about this problem with not just corrupt officers, but inept officers. And I mean, obviously are good ones. I'm lucky in my unit. I've got some really amazing commanders. Just shocking that I just rolled the dice and got lucky. Right. But I know there's lots of others who have complained to me constantly. So when that training comes here to Ukraine, there's necessarily going to be interaction between, you know, Western officers and Ukrainian officers. And that's going to be interesting how that shakes out and that negotiation shakes out, because there's going to be a lot of resistance from the Ukrainian officers on how the Westerners want to do things and want to conduct training and all of that. And that's going to affect, leading into your question.
Yeah, which leads to a completely separate question, which I'll postpone for just a moment. But one of the reasons I asked what I just did about integration and doctrinal changes is I regularly read International Institute for Study of War reports on what's going on and such. And the thing that struck me, this was only about a week ago, was every time they talk about Russian forces, it's specific specialist units that are running their drones. They're not integrated at a low level, according to what they're reporting here. And I'm wondering if the Ukrainians are still performing that way, or have they integrated, drone technology and such down to, say, a platoon or even squad level?
It's patchy. It's I wouldn't say it's across the board in the Ukrainian armed forces. It's hit or miss based on one brigade, unit, battalion, company. Some are really great, some are really heavily integrated, others are not, and it just depends,
Makes sense.
I will say, in terms of doctrine, and Brian and I know someone who's actively writing doctrine for the Ukrainian armed forces right now, that the movement is going to, slowly, creepily, crankily moving towards a combined arms warfare where drones replace traditional aircraft as close air support.
Yeah.
And that's
I'm glad you said. I wasn't sure if we could say that or not, but you got more OPSEC knowledge on what we could say.
But that's, it's just a natural evolution that's happening.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's their Air Force. That is now their Air Force is going to be drones, fixed wing, and FPV. That is the future. Just smaller objects moving out there and doing the same. Like an AWAC, right? How do we reduce one of those down to something small, right?
Right.
So you get a full spectrum of what's going on in the battlefield. And, these are things that, you have to re-envision. You have to re-envision the battlefield in this situation where you're not, the Western, the NATO, what is NATO's budget? If we looked at it like $2 trillion, something like that, if you combined all the assets together, it's unbelievable. So they have very specialized, incredible things, that we see flying around, and you take a video and you say, "It's an alien, that was alien." It's just mind-blowing stuff. On this level here, we're looking at some things that came out of the 1960s, right? So having to create a whole nother concept is what is going on with this doctrine. And I don't mean to repeat myself, but it goes back to what you're saying. It has to be reimagined. And, the U.S. has a parallelization with that because we're in love with our strategies and the way we were trained and our technology. But now you got to go train another military, and we have no clue. We have no clue about trench warfare and things like that from our side, like they see in Ukraine now.
Brian, I would contend that one of the biggest obstacles you're going to face in this country with this kind of stuff is the fact that the defense industrial complex is wedded to the idea of big, fancy, expensive items.
Yep.
And having little made in the basement drones is complete anathema to them.
Well,
they want to make money.
10% of $2,000 isn't a big profit, right? I'm sorry,
yeah, exactly.
and all the other general dining, all you guys, it's not. They want $2 million at least. At 10% of that is a good profit.
Yeah. There is some logic to that for sure. Sakai, how's it going? Welcome. You made it.
Hey, yeah, sorry, I had a previous engagement that came up last minute, but I wanted to pop in to say hi and be here with all of you.
Hey, cool. A couple of shout outs I'm going to do quick here. Linda H in the chat threw $28 direct donation in through PayPal there or whatever for the Boom Boom Fund. Big shout there, Linda. Thank you very much. We had a $10 tip come through Stream Elements. It says it's anonymous. When it comes through PayPal, I actually see more information about people. And I know that you're in the chat, but you maybe wanted it anonymous. So I don't know if I should or shouldn't. But you know who you are. You're in the chat. There was an anonymous tip, and let me know if I should be shouting you out for it, because I just, maybe that there's a reason. I don't know, right? Just trying to play by the rules. Okay, yeah, I'm caught up. Let's see here.
I wanted to ask, going back to what you were talking about, UK officers coming to train Ukrainian officers. And
I didn't say that. I just said that might happen.
Yeah, I understand. One of the biggest issues I would see is that the entire NATO command structure is really predicated on having a large and very professional NCO corps. Has Ukraine made that transition? Or are they still on the old Russian system where officers make all the decisions and NCOs are basically just the larger thug who beats up the little guy?
Brian and I are just biting our lips because we're like, what can we say? We know things, we can't say things. I mean, let's just say it's a transition. Ukraine is in transition, and it's transitioning from this old Soviet model.
Yeah.
And that's what I said. Like, it's spotty, it's all over the place. You've got really good units, Azov and Magyar, and then you've got other ones that are just total, Soviet corrupt commander idiots, and everything in between. And so it's evolving organically, but this theoretical situation where the West sends trainers here to Ukraine, I think would move that along. There's going to be a lot of butting heads, but it will move that along very quickly.
Let me ask you a question, James. Do you think with your working, and we've talked about this, we've been in groups talking about this, but do you think the primary focus should be the values of the U.S. soldiers, like the values of, like when I was a soldier, we had these core values we had to follow, and making that the pivotal core and develop your NCO core out of that, and that values first have to be created before we can create anything else off of that. Because I think the primary thing is nobody quite knows the right way to act, if that makes sense. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm just hoping.
Historically, the Ukrainian army was the place you went to because you wanted to be corrupt. I'm talking about pre-2014, because the army was basically useless. There was like only 7,000 or something, and you would sit on your ass, do nothing, and sell weapons out the back door or whatever. That's and every Ukrainian I've talked to has told me essentially the same thing. Like, if you didn't have any ambition in life and you just wanted to be a corrupt sub-criminal, go join the army. And so that is how it's very difficult to move the general public's regard of the armed forces out of that mode.
James, what you're saying right now, it actually makes a lot of sense when I look at some pop culture references that originate from Ukraine. Like, for example, I think once before on a stream briefly, the Stalker series of games was brought up because that's made in Ukraine. If you've ever played those games, like the way that not Russian military, not any other country, the way the Ukrainian military is painted in those games, I mean, it's basically just like a mafioso organization.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, here I'm talking about Ukrainians' opinion, and we have a Ukrainian in our.
Yeah.
So
true.
my apologies, Slavi. If you have some viewpoints on this that you'd like to share, feel free. If I'm wrong on any points, feel free to
let us
clarify.
Westerners tell the Ukrainians all about their culture.
That's what I mean. I mean, I'm learning.
How American of you.
Right, exactly.
I told James, Westerners and Ukraine are like bulls in china shops. We just don't understand their whole that whole walls and barriers that you're not supposed to cross.
Yeah, I just bull in the china shop. That's right. Yeah, just break right up. Sometimes it's a good thing, and sometimes not.
That's funny. The Weasel came in with a 10-pound super sticker there. Is it 10 euros? I got an eye appointment soon and I'll be able to read my screens better. It's the little pear-shaped dude doing the whole Superman flying thing. So thanks, Weasel. And John Webster sent in for the Boom Boom Fund, 49 bucks. So big shout out there, John Webster. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I got a couple of questions here from viewers I'm going to run through for the panel. Bobo Uzla there in the chat. We'll start with you on this one, Commander. Will we see an F-16 attack platform that could do some real finishing of the war, or are they going to remain defensive primarily?
They're definitely already being used in an offensive mode. A lot of the strikes that we're seeing occurring into rear areas are being launched by F-16s. The problem is whenever you fly an aircraft past that front line, you're putting it at risk of being shot down, losing your pilot, etc. So the Ukrainians, because they don't have a whole hell of a lot of F-16s or pilots trained to operate those systems yet, they have to be very circumspect about when and where they use them to get the most benefit from it. But they're definitely already starting to employ them in that manner.
There was another one here from Tim Momans. United 24 just released today a short video view of a test that placed a couple of weeks ago on drone combined arms. So I suppose that, combined arms drones, that's going to really evolve over time. We'll be seeing a lot more of that. We got the right of people for some opinions on this. So everybody have a turn if you want. Or nobody.
By the way,
you want me to say something, James, and then I'll bounce it off you.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I think the drone combined arms is something. So, kind of like what we're doing, where you have maybe for the future, this is kind of a concept, but having an R&D group attached to several units on the front lines, because the combined arms thing has to evolve rapidly. And the U.S., the way the U.S. does it is very, I want to say too much, but we had a project, right? That the Ukrainians came to us with. It was a very specialized project. It wasn't a breakthrough technology, okay? It was just a very specialized thing that they needed. If they had done it their way, they would have had to go through the government, and then the government would have to go through a defense company to make it, and then 6 months later they would get it, and each unit would cost $10,000, right? Whereas in our case, we did it in 5 days and brought them far more benefits to that, added benefits to that platform than they had originally asked for. And we did it in 5 days, and it was $90 for that platform to make themselves. And, but it did take an engineer to do it. We needed a team of engineers to do it. Like I said, it wasn't a breakthrough. It was just complicated what they wanted.
Right.
And we did it, and we provided it to them, and we did it in record time because we're not seeking profit and patents and all these things. So my point is, the combined arms is going to need something like that for Ukraine, where it can evolve rapidly, not cost tons of money. So they're going to really have to rethink how they do their R&D, if that makes sense.
Well, there's the issue of you guys need the data from those using the tools as fast as possible, but there has to be a secure chain of communication and all, and so that there must be a consideration in there, right? Because I'm figuring this is a lot like Formula One auto racing, where the engineers and the team and stuff can't get the data off the car fast enough to try to make it faster and faster and faster, right?
Yeah, and you're hitting it on the head. Is this combined arms evolution is going to be critical, right? So you're going to have to evolve these systems rapidly, learn how to integrate them, modify them for that mission, that particular region, that particular area of Ukraine. And so, yeah, combined arms is kind of a very complicated thing. Whereas here, we have the same platforms all the time. You're going to have an F-60, F-22 Raptor, and it's just more static for us. And we can take longer to learn this combined arms and how to make it work. But over there, it has to evolve rapidly, and the technology has to evolve along with it in a very quick sense. And hence why, and again, I know we've talked a little bit about the bad things with Ukraine, but they've been amazing. Overall, I have not run into any problems to the Ukrainian military. You guys are amazing. Everybody has problems. U.S. has problems. Everybody got issues. But they have allowed us that unfettered access to help them evolve these platforms rapidly.
Yeah.
I've got
Go
a
ahead.
question.
Yeah.
So within the next, obviously we're focusing on rapid changes right now as the war is continuing. The war is actively ongoing. In the next, it might be hard to predict this, but the next 5 to 10 year period, as Ukraine continues to develop their own domestic R&D, their own domestic arms industry, defense industry in general, close cooperation with partner countries like the US, the UK, others will be crucial. But they're locally, like bordering Ukraine, physically touching. Do you all foresee a much closer relationship with Poland being a necessity in order to really see Ukraine be prepared for the next decade of whatever there is to come regarding Moscovia, this whole terrible situation?
It's an interesting idea. Okay. Sorry, I just got to the bottom of my tea, and it's like Campbell's chunky tea. So
It's feeling disgusting.
sorry.
Noodles in the bottom of your tea.
We've got to award him the Bachelor of the Week award for that one, right? It's like finding SpaghettiOs at the bottom of your cup. You're not supposed to do that.
How the hell do you make lumpy tea?
I am not certain. Something happened wrong. Something went wrong there. But to be honest with you,
the carrots before you put them in the tea.
I'm calling your mom to tell her you failed, dude. That's just
Well, Slavi knows that most Ukrainians drink tea without the filter. You just put the tea in the cup, and then I don't know. I don't have a big enough mustache to filter my tea that way, but
it's even grosser now.
but you guys, Ukrainians, they have
tea tastes like hot dog. What's going on here?
Exactly. No, Ukrainians have evolved these like special lip muscles that filter out all of the tea parts. I just can't do that. I haven't learned that yet.
Sounds kinky.
But to address Sakai's question about Poland, I mean, it's not something I hear talked about very often, except for that Poland is the primary conduit for stuff coming. I think what's going to happen is, like, I've had stuff essentially smuggled into Ukraine technology.
Yeah.
For various reasons, because China's not sending us stuff anymore. So stuff has to be sent, for example, from China to a third country, and then to Ukraine. Okay. A lot of drone technology and chips and motors and what have you. So in that sense, Poland, I think, is becoming a very important point, because it's easier just to have stuff sent there, and then sometimes carried by hand over the border. Also, Ukraine has stupid import tariff laws. Anything that has a value over like $150 that you bring with you over the border, you can be charged like 30% excise tax on, and it's just God, just shooting themselves in the foot in that way, you know. And so there's ways to get around that. The laptop that I'm working on right now, one of my viewers, I basically to buy it here in Ukraine would have cost me about $2,000, and I bought it on Best Buy in Albuquerque for $650, and had one of my viewers who happened to be coming to Ukraine, you know, smuggle it here for me, so that, to avoid it's just crazy the markup. And there's no Amazon here, okay? And you can get Alibaba stuff, but it's restricted and it takes forever, okay? And so the markup for technology, to be able to buy technology, can become very, very difficult. So chips and motors and components and things like that get harder and harder. So Poland is a very important third party for that. That's the only thing that I can say I know about.
Well, and then we had an incident where when we were leaving Ukraine to go into Poland, we had some extremely advanced equipment in our vehicle. And the Polish saw it, they said, well, that's like, how much is it? It's like $2,500. You can't have more than that. Otherwise, you got to go through this whole other border thing. And it was a nightmare. So we turned around. We went to this little village, found a hotel that was out of business. We went up, we knocked on the door. He was like the only guy in this village who had a hotel. He came, he says, I'm no longer in business. We said, listen, we'll give you 10 times what you charge. We just need to store this equipment. He's looking at why, like, what is that? He says, wait, don't worry. It's just some advanced stuff. We're working on some stuff. So we put it in the room and he gave us his card. He said, there's more people like you. Please come back. And when this guy saw, you know, he gotta do that, but just store advanced equipment. But he was pretty shocked at some of the stuff we were storing in there, and he was looking at us like, I don't know who these guys are. But anyways, yeah, there's issues with getting stuff across the border.
Yeah. No, it wasn't me just asked. Yeah, there's no Amazon. Amazon does not deliver to Ukraine. Like, I mean, I don't think so. I mean, maybe there's some.
No, there's no Amazon, right?
Yeah.
Not at all. We've never been able to get anything for stuff we buy over there.
Right. We have, Ukraine has its own Amazon, which is called Rosetka. Slava, you know all about Rosetka, you know? But yeah, you know, stuff has to go, it gets imported. Anything that you buy that's made in Ukraine is generally much cheaper than it would be. Anything that has to be imported, you know, freaking like Jack Daniels costs a shit ton more here in Ukraine because it's an import and it's sitting right next to some, you know, I don't know, Ukrainian whiskey or whatever. And it's like, you know, half the price. So, and it's, you know, largely because of these import taxes that the Ukrainian government has that are they're tariffs, you know, and they're terrible, terrible tariffs. Stupid tariffs. So, yeah. What can I say? Duncan, are you? Is Duncan with? Yeah, we have Yoda with us.
Yes, I am here, you shilly buggers. I'm just stepping in here to help out, but you know, I'm just listening in. Yeah, cool. At the minute, I'm just catching up.
Cool. Yeah. So, since you came in late, maybe some of our viewers came in late as well. So if you guys don't know, I'm a soldier in the Ukrainian army, and I also have this YouTube channel called Why Ukraine you can check out. But the guest that I brought with me today is Brian here from Technology United for Ukraine. And so if you go to technologyforukraine.com, you can check it out, and we're looking for volunteer engineers, right?
Scientists, technologists, or anybody who wants to help. We need people to work on our social media with me and fundraising as we're now evolving that side. But we're largely self-funded, but more we can get going to James, that's the goal, to push out fiber drones and other technologies that we're developing with them. Some we can't really get into, but
Yeah.
yeah, it would help his cause out as we push off these things to get manufactured.
Yeah, yeah. And so the fundraiser that Dr. Dawson has very graciously done today. So if you donate to the Shills today, it's all going to our fundraiser to help my unit build fiber optic drones. So
Yes, if you join us, you can help out the Birds of Fury. It'll be one combined thing. So joining us, you help them.
Yeah.
In,
So if you
in
go,
the fundraising and social media end.
if you go to whyukraine.com, you'll see the fundraiser there. And I literally just set it up today because that's how things are here. We're just like, it's welcome to Ukraine. It's everything's slapped together at the last minute. But talk about needing social media help. I know, Slava, I don't know about your experience running your own channel, but it's a lot of freaking work, man.
It truly is. It's a job, but if you love it, then, and you have a great purpose and passion, I don't think it's, work. I think, it truly becomes a cause more than anything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You see, all this talk is kind of like making my new enterprise look kind of stupid, really, because I'm working on a new team. We're gonna build up a crack core of commando units, and we are going to go across the enemy lines, and we are going to annoy the Russians like mad. We're going to put cling film over the toilet seats. We're going to throw stick bombs. We're going to give them dirty doggy fake dog poo. We're going to put it everywhere. We're just going to annoy the fuck out of the Russians. And you kind of making my concept look silly now.
So when you say commando units, do you mean that they're not wearing any underwear under their pants?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
It's all going to be kilts.
But going commando, yes. Yeah.
All right.
I could be going commando right now, and you wouldn't even know it. Mm-hmm.
I could smell it from here.
Oh shit! You too?
Oh
Damn
no! Oh no! Oh no!
Oh, sorry, Slavi. Sorry about that.
I'm glad we don't have smell-o-vision right now. To be honest, it's probably a good thing. What did I miss? Everything all right? We're still going. We're good here.
Yeah. I'm gonna go wash out the chunks out of my teacup.
Not something I used to hearing.
And the dandruff from filtering it through his beard. What an image!
Dandruff tea.
It's like he's in a trench or something on the front lines.
Oh, it's funny. Let me switch down to the question room here. Let's see here. Okay. We got one. James just buggered off, so we'll wait here. Here's one from Lindsay Rogers. Will the Combined Arms Plan consider the negative effects of jamming tech on the battlefield? If it can be answered and all, right?
Fiber optic.
Yeah.
So you get around. That's one technology. And then they work on systems inside of the drone to work more autonomously or work around the jamming. That's 100% really what they're focused on, is how to get around the jamming or target the jamming. But that's a whole nother discussion there.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh no. I had a question, but you go first, Dick. What were you going to say?
No, okay. We've got some latency here. Sakai's a little. I'm going to send you a different link to rejoin with, Sakai. Give me 1 second here, Commander. Were you just jumping in there?
Yeah, I just said that another thing that I suspect is going to be utilized at some point. I don't know if Ukraine can manage it right now because it's really a technological issue that will require, DARPA levels of funding. But finding a way to have control frequencies do frequency hopping for the drones.
Mm.
Well, that is yeah, that is definitely something that is being worked on, I guess you can say.
Yeah.
What's that? I missed it. Sorry.
Frequency hopping for drones.
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah. Without going too far down rabbit holes, but no, you're right on it. And I think, so I like to say this about sometimes when the US makes something, let's say it's a frequency hopping, there are people intentionally over engineering. And so you end up with something, $2 million, right? Then you get a bunch of engineers and literally go back 40 years and technologies. Now we have engineers who've been engineers for 60 years, just to tell you how old some of our engineers are. And they'll go back to something from the 70s, mix it with something from the 90s, and then something from a cell phone, this and that. And the next thing you know, you got a $2,000 platform that is like a paralleling, something that's $2 million, but it's been well thought out. And sometimes you can over engineer the problem. So if a drone drops below the horizon and it loses the signal, you can go down a rabbit hole and say, well, let's do it with AI. Let's do this. But you got to look at the problem. Is it a frequency problem or is it another problem? Like you got to reimagine how to approach that problem. And you can do it one way and over engineer it, right? Or go another way and, have another simpler solution that is far less expensive, right? Does that make sense?
My unit, the unit that I am in, our fixed wing drones, they are mid-range bombers. Okay, they have a range of we go behind enemy lines 50, 60 kilometers or more. Yeah. So I'm not going to tell you how we do it, but you could come up with 100 different really complex solutions to the problem. The Ukrainian solution to the problem is so incredibly simple that it's mind-blowing.
Right.
And it's like, oh, really? That works? Okay, we're doing it.
Yeah.
Really. So
No, I was just saying, once the war is over and other militaries, the British, the French, the US, what have you, try to engineer solutions to these problems, they're going to go down the $2 million rabbit hole every time. I mean,
yeah.
All right.
Let me just check. Sakai, you're back in. Everything working now?
Seems like it. Let me know if any more lag comes up.
I bet it won't now. I've got a trick. That's why I gave you the new link. So let's see how it works here. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have a completely separate announcement. A huge thing happened with me today. The reason that I'm here talking to you basically so I'm on vacation from my unit. I was forced to take a vacation. It was really weird.
Forced, fired, what?
Fired, yeah. No. So I today went to the immigration office here in Ukraine to take the test that I had to take with my wife for my permanent residence permit here in Ukraine.
Oh.
Yeah. So it was just one day that I had to do this, but my unit wouldn't let me take off just like, one day to get here from the, front line and then one day back. It would have been just 3 days, but they're like, no, it's 2 weeks or nothing.
Right.
I'm like, okay, well, fine. They didn't even give me a choice. It's very interesting up until just this past year. When you get your permanent residency, they just you pay some money and you get it, and you like show your marriage certificate, or there's a couple of other qualifications for permanent residency. But now they passed a law basically more or less trying to replicate like U.S. immigration law. And if you know anything about, permanent residency in America through marriage-based immigration, it's, oh my God, it can take years, all kinds of craziness. And you have to go through all this testing, and they freaking give you the third degree. And it's like, here in Ukraine, why? Like, why? So this is, and so I had to go through, they asked me like 45 questions about like, and my wife and I, we had to answer exactly the same, and I told my various friends about it and things here in Ukraine, and they were like, they're making you do that? Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Like, what is, so this is a classic example of applying the mindset and the rules from America to here. So somebody in Ukraine was like, we got to be just like America. So let's make this law that, blah, blah, blah. And the same thing potentially can happen with like technology and drones. If Ukraine tries to implement the Lockheed Martin type, that's not going to work here. Just ham-fistedly doing that is not going to work. The same way that just straight up NATO tactics training doesn't work. And actually, a lot of times in the NATO training that Ukrainians are getting, the more experienced guys in the training, the more experienced Ukrainians are training the NATO guys. Actually, it's and so this is it works both ways, basically. So it's not just, oh, poor Ukraine, please help us. No, the West is getting a huge benefit out of this in many ways, and I would even say as valuable or more valuable than what Ukraine has been given and is being given.
We got a question in here for your Brian there. Tim Morgan in the chat. I don't know why I can't say that. Vermorgan. Brian, I was wondering if your organization has been campaigning yet internationally in the ham communities.
Yeah, actually. So radio frequency obviously is a very big part of the battlefield nowadays. And yes, we do work with, so in our organization it is very interesting because we have ham operators who grew up in the Appalachians, and they work in a little shack in the back. They have a 12th grade education, and they'll be sitting with some research engineer and scientists that worked at all the various big defense contracting companies working together on solutions. So we work with different perspectives of that problem. So yes, the ham operators, we do have a number of them in our organization.
Also, roast beef operators as well. Sorry, I'm sorry. Somebody killed me.
I was in that team, man. What's that lumping?
Yeah, I think those were mushroom pits. Yeah.
Microdosing, aren't you again?
Yeah. Welcome to today's stream, sponsored by psilocybin.
I was just waiting, as soon as you said ham operators, I was like, oh, I'm gonna get a good joke in.
Hey, I do the shit jokes around here.
Oh man. Oh wow. We have a very big shout out to call out here. So I'm gonna hit the horn and then the applause because Stephen Walsh came in with a $200 super chat, no less. Huge thanks there, Stephen Walsh. Meshtastic is fantastic with food. That was a good one. Oh yeah, get some thumbs up on that super chat, everybody. Huge shout there, Steve. Thank you. Into the boom boom fund it goes.
Do you mind if I elaborate? Because I don't know. Sometimes I think James and I assume everybody knows what a fiber drone is and what they're donating to.
Thank you.
We should have talked about the beginning. Like, if you don't know what a fiber drone is, fiber drone is a drone that has a fiber cable as thin as a human hair, but extremely strong. I mean, these things are very strong. and the drone will take off and the fiber comes out the back. So it can fly up 20 kilometers out, maybe more, and it'll drop this fiber. And when you try to jam it, it can't be jammed because there's no frequency going to it. It's going to the cable. And no, nobody can follow it back. We always get that. Well, what if somebody follows it? Well, good luck with that. If you're going to walk 20 miles, you're going to cross
following
minefield.
this like human hair.
Yeah, that's going over trees, by the way, but you're going to follow it, go across a minefield, and drones that are protected. Anyways, you can't follow it back. It's very difficult. It would be like fishing for orcs, right? That would be the analogy. But it cannot be jammed. So it goes out on a mission, and usually it's a one-way mission, but it can go out and it can be used in many different operational capacities. But that is probably one of the biggest things. And you'd be surprised. And a lot of people think like, well, shoot, the Russians are making them. Why aren't they pumping out a lot? Because when they make them, they're very expensive. Okay. And I want to tell you how much ours cost. They're paying probably $30,000+ for a fiber drone, right? At least, right? And then there's a lot of bureaucracy about getting them to the front line. There's a lot that kind of stagnates that push. Whereas we're going to make them, we only have a $250 kit that we put on a drone and makes it now a fiber drone. So think about the numbers we can pump out, and we can get that cost if we do everything in mass to $150. So we can flood the front lines with these fiber drones, and it can have a significant impact. So you're donating this money will. And what's the number, by the way, James, of drones that do not make it to a target? It's like 1 in 20 make it to a target. The rest are jammed and they don't make it. So think of the statistical improvement you'll have with drones by making them fiber. Just think of that, how you will dramatically impact that ratio.
Is there any appreciable cost to the fiber, or is that kind of dime a dozen, easy to, that's not really a factor?
Oh, there's cost, but
it's very minimal. They're very, very inexpensive, like $30 a roll. And we are looking for more Western manufacturers for it. If there's anybody out there that has one of these drop towers and they want to work with us, and we'd love to get it somewhere in Europe, somewhere else out of the Chinese hands, that would be amazing. I mean, it's more expensive to do it in the West just because we have more burdens. We have, employees are paid more. It's just things are more expensive. But if somebody's willing to work with us and realize it's for an amazing cause, that would be a tremendous asset for the Birds of Fury. So remember, coming and working with us.
Oh my God.
Come work with us, and we'll put you, if you want to work on the fundraising side, right over and working with James and I on fundraising for the Birds of Fury to pump these things out.
Boom. Yeah. Brian, I'm really glad that you explained that about like what a fiber drone is, because I thought a fiber drone was a drone that helps you poop.
There we go.
But
it's kicking in again.
Metamucil drone.
Fiber optic drone. I just want to specify it's fiber optic.
And see, we use our own lingo now. We're at the point we've like abbreviated. Everyone's like fiber. Okay, so you get fiber and you put it in the drone.
The Metamucil drone. It's slippery smooth.
Yeah, somebody was asking, like, what happens if a cow eats the fiber? I guess they.
Well, look, anything can happen. I mean, remember, it's statistical probability. The probability of a cow at that moment crossing might be 1 in 500,000, right? But yeah, cables do get snapped. But the percentage of that happening is fairly rare. If you have a good operator, you want to actually lay it over trees because it helps keep it elevated so that doesn't happen. And plus it makes it higher up, so you'll get a little bit more out of the spool rather than it dropping, way down, especially if you're up high. Right. So, there are just different techniques for using the fiber, but it's not Metamucil.
Yeah, just to let you know. If a cow eats the fiber, you have now have a battle cow. You know, he just turns into a
Yeah,
drone cow.
it's like a ground-based fiber drone now.
Yeah.
Classy milk.
Guided bovine technology.
I remember we were testing it somewhere in Ukraine, and it was funny because the test site next to it had a farmer. It's really weird, like, but I don't know. I guess he was cleared out. And I remember we were flying it around, and it looks like fishing string, and it kept dropping on his head. He was doing the track, and we were just flying this thing in a circle, just working on some problems. We were laying out about 10 kilometers of fiber in this like fairly small radius. And I remember him stopping, and he's looking, and he's pulling, and he's looking in the sky like, you know, God had just dropped this spider web or whatever on his head. But that was
I got to cut in here quick, everybody, because Stephen Walsh is at it again in the super chat section here. Let's give him some applause. A $200 super chat, and it's from Pine Barrens with the big double plus. You know, Apple needs to give me a trick for pluses. Like I can do the hearts and stuff. Steve, big hearts to you from Pine Barrens. I like it. Everybody in the live chat, give Steve big thanks again. That's when Steve gets it in his mind that support is coming out, it comes out. Man, that guy comes down like a hammer at times. Thank you so
too much
Steve.
fiber.
Yeah, fiber drone. That's funny. I'm now every time. That's gonna make a screwy little game in my head for jokes.
I can
coming
show
up.
you one actually flying. Let's see if I can do it right. Let me go to here. I don't know how well you'll see it on. I don't know if you guys can see that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I have this video on my website.
This was us laying the fiber on some poor farmer's head. Watch it. You see it shoot out the back?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were doing a small, tight radius.
There you go. There it is.
Honestly, it looks like the drone just has a giant ball sack.
You know what we did? There's a bulb that goes on the back now, and they're black, and they look like a black widow. So what I want to do is we're going to have the hourglass put on there. So, you know, when they see that thing coming, just get away from the equipment. When you see that black widow, you run. Don't try to shoot it down. Just get away and let us blow up whatever.
Spider drone, spider drone.
Exactly. Spidey drone.
Oh, we're going to get copyright struck now.
Right.
I've got a question. The work that Technology United for Ukraine does. So I imagine that there's probably folks doing hardware drone building related work there in Ukraine and maybe in neighboring Poland or a few other places as well. Is it really just physically located in those two places that putting together actual systems is the most effective? Or is there a way for anyone around the whole world to get hands-on knowledge and, you know, build out drones or other devices that get into the hands of soldiers? Is that more of a regional thing, like more cost effective, makes more sense if you're physically there close to the country or in the country?
I think both James and I will agree here. It's just cost. You're going to ship it all the way over. And, you know, I mean, it just gets expensive where it's better to just pack all these pieces up or produce them locally in Ukraine itself. So it just makes sense to probably, James, you want to add to that? Because you guys are around.
Yeah. I mean, I would say like partially assembled drone components maybe might be viable to ship, but they're unfortunately shipping like a fully assembled, potentially military grade drone through the EU and then across the Ukrainian border. Oh God, it used to be like, I'm talking like 2 years ago, you could walk across the border with anything you wanted as long as it was painted green. They just get in there. And now it's getting harder and harder and harder. And it's, you know, government bureaucracy cutting off our noses to spite its face, and so yeah, it's like, you know, maybe like chips, for example, the actual onboard flight controllers and power distributors and VTX, but that type of stuff needs to start being made in the United States as opposed to China, and not just the United States, but other countries, and is starting to be made in Ukraine. And in fact, my unit we actually make our own chips in small batches, and in some cases we're launching that for very specific top secret stuff that we're prototyping.
Very secret.
Yeah, but you know, a wave solder machine, if you don't know what that is, it's a big giant $100,000 machine that chunks out, you know, 1,000 freaking circuit boards a day.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that they do exist, and they're starting to be here in Ukraine, but that's really prohibitively expensive.
Oh yeah.
But we are looking at sourcing those exactly to build these fiber drones. Maybe not with this iteration, but in future iterations. We're speaking to those manufacturers to get exactly that. And so another reason,
sponsor tonight, PCB Way.
Right. I mean, PCB Way is awesome, but then you're getting it from China.
Yeah.
Right. And you know, if you send specifications for this hardware, that hardware, there's some guy in China going, oh, look at this new technology that we can use for drones now. And they're going to take those specs, and they'll probably end up in Russia next week.
Yeah. You know? Yep, this is a problem.
It is.
And if there's anybody out there who's a logistics expert in this area, and you've got a lot of
that was Commander McMillan is the logistics master, but not so much in computer chips and military itself.
Well, we can talk afterwards, because I have a program that I'm working on. But yeah, so if anybody out there is really knowledgeable about this and wants to join us and help us out, go ahead to our website, join us, come in and tell us how you could do this better. Like we're looking for the masters of logistics and manufacturing to help us figure these problems out. Yeah.
Stephen Walsh is in with another super chat here. I just resurrected something here from the old trick bag. So we're doing fireworks for Stephen here. $20 super chat here. Components, point-to-point wiring, worldwide flow machine. Yeah, Stephen is obviously knowledgeable in this area a little bit, right? Very much so. Fireworks for Steve. But yeah, there's I can't remember which one offhand. It might have been the 8-bit guy, but one of the retro YouTubers went and bought a flow machine for doing motherboards, and it turned into a nightmare because they were warping the boards, trying to get the heat right. This isn't a thing that you just buy and use. There's a serious learning curve to this as well, right?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, I started my tech career working for Apple and HP in the 90s, working on circuit boards.
Oh, okay.
And, so I did component level circuit board repair and troubleshooting for HP for like 3 years. And
that must have been a hard job, because they fuck everything up, right? I mean,
yeah, they did too. Yeah, I was the wall of quality, though.
Oh, so it's your fault.
Oh, that's funny. What time do we got here? Okay, we've been an hour and 35 minutes. Yeah, we got about 15, 20 minutes here. There was a question here. There's a couple, actually. Jilk in the chat, 1989, Jilk 1989. Question for everybody here, but the drone folk specifically. Could wildlife be getting entangled in the fiber optic cable, like for real style? You know, Ukraine's nature has suffered so much already. Right. So like you were saying there, Brian, with the trees and everything, there's a great fix for that right away. Right.
Yeah, that's definitely, I would agree. You know, it's like fishing string. Just think of what fishing string can do. And unfortunately, there's a lot of bad things that get laid onto a battlefield. It's not something you want to cross, whether you're an animal or a human. And this is the horrors of war and why we shouldn't have them. You know, people are trying to kill a massive amount of people at one time. So you're using things that are just, you know, they're apocalyptic in their purpose. So it's you know, it's terrible.
Yeah.
We were joking about cows, and the real Vladimir Putin spoke up. He said that there's no cows in no man's land. You know, right? Because there's a bunch of mines.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But all the dogs are fat. So
yeah.
It is helping the wildlife in one way, I guess.
Yeah, it's
yeah. Let me see here. There was another one here. It wasn't me in the chat. Could the panel please give a little shout discussion to the economic news about Russia? You know, Joke says here, I know there's not like an economy expert on, but you know, it's definitely worth bringing up. As far as I hear, it's just complete doom and gloom now, Commander. It's nothing but, you know, awful and chaos. And I mean, you know, welcome to it, you bastards, as far as I'm concerned. But, you know.
Well, between the sanctions taking a significant bite, and I include in that the fact that now governments are starting to move against the shadow fleet, so that it's getting harder and harder to smuggle stuff. You couple that with the fact that the Ukrainian, I don't know what to call them, strategic forces, Air Force, drone force, they're making a number of significant hits on Russia's industrial base, particularly oil production, but also military production. All that taken together, yeah, they're having a really tough time of it. To give you an idea how tough things are getting, normally the mobilization cycle for the Russian influx of new recruits into the army was twice a year, typically in, I think it's July and December. They've advanced that this year to January instead of July. Last year it was advanced to May. And it shows you how desperate things are starting to get for them, and that they have to keep going to these fairly extreme measures to just keep the ball rolling.
If you want some numbers, it's strange. I was just going to do a YouTube video on this today. This is from Moscow, the Moscow Times. Russia's hidden war debt creates a looming credit crisis. What happened is the Russians have made banks give loans to the military industrial complex to increase production. But the problem is interest rates for these loans are outpacing the profit. So they think there is a wave of bankruptcy about to come in the near future with companies that were defense contractors not able to meet their burdens, and they're gonna go out of business. So the need that they have is just outpacing their ability to financially fulfill it.
Right.
And there was something else that's here was they're about to go into a major stagnation is a big thing they're talking about now.
And you couple this with things like, and we talked about this, I think it was last week, satellite imagery of some of the tank storage depots where they put all the old obsolete tanks, because Russia never gets rid of. Pre-war, these things had, you know, a couple thousand tanks stored in each one of them. Half of them are empty. So they've reactivated much of this obsolescent equipment, and they've already lost it. So
right.
When you hear reports of them conducting a combined arms, attack at a company level, and you hear, oh yeah, they sent 20 vehicles out and 15 or 18 of them are destroyed in these attacks, and they gain, if they gain anything, you know, a couple of meters at best.
Right.
And you start adding on to that. Okay, so how are you going to finance buying new tanks to replace the lost ones?
Okay, well, I agree with you guys on all these points, but there's a flip side to this, because all of this could change next week, in 2 days. In fact. Because a certain person who we shall not
be
mention
on my parade, didn't you?
Here,
I'm
here.
sorry.
Yeah, I gotta hit the button now that you did this.
I'm gonna come.
Yeah. So all he has to do is come in and say, I'm lifting all the sanctions. And, there's that factor. And then there's the China factor. Okay. So if China, under China decides to flip and start throwing its weight behind Russia with its manufacturing power, then all bets are off and Ukraine is freaking screwed. And I mean, I'm not leaving, but it's going to be a hard decade.
Yeah,
It is.
I personally think, I mean, it could go any number of ways, but I don't think that China really, in the end, wants Russia to really win, as quote unquote, and in the way that Russia wants to, which is basically overrunning and taking all or a majority of Ukraine. I think that China is in a position right now, looking at the big picture globally, where the US is not looking very healthy politically. Russia's not looking very healthy. The only person being left out of drama currently on a massive scale is China. So I don't know. I could be
They have
wrong.
their own internal issues. They're not having problems on the international diplomatic front, but internally they're having a lot of difficulty right now.
Yeah, but it's always that great tactic, though, isn't it, to have two people slug it out so they get all knackered and tired, and then you're just standing there, nice and strong.
Yeah, you're still standing up while everybody's already fallen down.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
I've got a question before we need to close out, and it might be something not to go into a whole lot of detail about, but I'm curious about technological means of supporting this part of the cause, helping Ukraine and Ukrainian sovereignty. So I've talked on other streams before about the difficulties but importance of supporting partisan movement, those who are trapped behind enemy lines in the occupied territories, who are pro-Ukraine. And so I know there's a few groups, for example, like Atesh is one, which operates in occupied territories as well as within enemy territory throughout Russia as well. Now, as far as occupied portions of Ukraine go, there's only two big mountain ranges in all of Ukraine I can think of: the Carpathians and then the Crimean mountain range down on the peninsula. So, is there some way to, I don't know, provide good training and equipment, communications equipment of some sort, so they can set up an effective, long-term, years-long resistance in those mountain ranges? Because everywhere else is just, how do you resist in a very flat occupied town or city, which has its own strategies and tactics, but the mountains down there in Crimea, has anyone heard anything about this topic?
Historically, actually, that has been the case in both the Carpath. I mean, for thousands of years, that's why every little valley in the Carpathians has its own little subculture. It's the reason that the Gothic language was spoken until the 1700s in Crimea, for example, because of those little redoubts, essentially. But I do not know in the modern era.
It's also worth noting that after World War II, Ukrainian nationalists continued to fight partisan campaigns against the Soviets for over a decade. I mean, it wasn't until like 58 or something that the last partisan attack was conducted.
Yep.
Yeah. And basically, I guess I feel like that's part of this, because this is a war between two industrialized nations. It's not a nation between countries that are, in terms of their combat capabilities, part of the developing world. And so, but I feel like that's something that's overlooked a lot, because the way that this is going, long-term resistance in the most effective way possible that can span across however long a time period is necessary. There's only a few places geographically where that might be possible. Well, easily possible in the occupied territories. Let me say it that way. So I guess it might just be that it's not talked a lot about because it's something that is meant to be more hush hush, you know. But I've been wondering if anyone has been looking into, you know, making contact and providing what's needed to those groups down there.
That behind the, I'm sure the GUR and the SBU are doing a lot. I mean, we know they are. We know they are, but yeah, it's something that's, you know, I mean, I'm sure, you know, a lot of these arsons, and even this is my suspicion that we won't know for years and years, but that the original Russia, the incursion by the Russian Freedom Legion into Belgorod, and then subsequently possibly even the Kursk incursion. One of the primary benefits of that, I think personally, was a massive transfer of drones to partisan units. That's what I think happened when the Ukrainian army crossed over the border in both of those occasions. I think they had a bunch of those flat pack Australian SciPac drones, which we know were used for some of the first initial long distance attacks deep inside Russia. And also I think a lot of the drone attacks that are happening, maybe not now. I think Ukraine has a lot more long range drone capability, but the initial ones were happening. They weren't like flying all the way from Ukraine to freaking wherever, Murmansk or something like that. They were being launched by partisans inside Ukraine, inside Russia, onto Russian airfields and all of that type of stuff. That's my thought.
I'm going to jump in here, wrap up a couple of shout outs here. We got Stephen Walsh coming in a couple of times here. First one was $10 super chat. Usually it's a power supply issue. He's talking JFETs here, field effect transistor. Keep your ideas close to your heart. Good words. Steve, I wonder if we shouldn't be hooking you up with these guys. Steve's second super chat in here, another $5 one as well. Make VTX or point-to-point wiring. See, you know, that I recognize some. So Steve knows what he's talking about here. Thanks again, Steve, as well. Huge thanks. And then we got Camilla Madison in the chat. Swedish kroners there, 27 of them as well. So big thanks there. NATO have to step up. I couldn't agree more at this point. You know, I know the whole, but you're not really a member and blah, blah. But at this point, you know, I agree that they should just, you know, say enough of this crap and get it done. But
well, we're seeing that, Dick. We're seeing different countries starting to sign separate deals with Ukraine outside of the NATO structure.
Yeah. And I like that very much. Sorry, Brian, go ahead.
No, I didn't interrupt. I just wish, and I want to say this right, that what they were supplying was relative to what is truly needed. Like, I know I could put a group of people together, James and I, easily, and have solutions that are largely not that expensive to very particular problems that the Ukrainian military is facing from a technological side. And I think if there was a focus, if you gave us $100 billion, for example, or 50 million, I'm not billion, I'm sorry,
please do that.
100 million or 50 million or 10 million, we could come up with very unique solutions to this problem. And I wish they were thinking like that, but the problem is their thinking is way up in Area 51 technology, incredible things and really super tanks and all, rather than down on fiber drone level, right? Or other platforms we're working on. Things like that we could field in a massive amount, and they would be extremely difficult to deal with and have very particular purposes that make sense to the soldier on the front line because they're designed in accordance to what Their problem is you got a guy sitting there. He's worried about this drone coming and dropping a $5 grenade on his head. That's his problem. How do we solve that problem? We need to, but you know, a Shaheed, they see him. These guys know. They see how high they are. They understand a lot about him.
So I see them all the time.
Yes, they do. And develop the weapon systems because they won't be expensive. I can tell you they will not. But if we could get that mindset to change in NATO and the U.S., wow, with the amount of money they spend, I mean, $1 billion may seem like a drop in the bucket typically, but with us, if we had our team together, war would be over.
Seriously.
Yeah, you're right. Not enough money's being spent on combat cows. do like the Romans did.
We need to deploy more cows because they're fiber snappers.
Do like the Romans did and send in like flaming pigs across into the enemy territory.
Great idea. Love it.
Cheryl had an interesting question in a conversation with somebody in the chat. She says, how would lifting sanctions enrich Trump? The USA is benefiting from gas and oil sales. So would it be Musk and his desire for Russian aluminum? What I would say in answer to that is Trump and the USA are two different things. Thank God.
For another day or so.
Yeah, right. But, you know, Trump's personal interests and the United States of America's personal interests in this case are directly at odds, I believe. I think that Trump is so, you know, he's been a Russian asset since there's evidence since the late 70s. And so he's so in the that mindset. You know, my live stream today was all about how we're basically creating a new age of empires with East Asia, Eurasia, and Oceania. You know, that's basically what's going to happen with the Xi Trump Putin summit that they're going to have, and then all this, you know, and I think Putin sold Trump on like, hey, you know what? Why don't you let us take Ukraine? We'll let you have Greenland. You can have Canada and Greenland. Why don't you just take that? And Trump's like, oh yeah, you'll let me have that? Okay.
I'm visioning this as a puppet show, right? You know,
totally, literally a puppet show.
Yeah. I'm looking at the time. We're getting pretty close here. Yeah. So first off, here we'll go around to the regulars and see what everybody's thinking for a little goodbye thoughts. Dunk, we'll start with yourself. We'll work our way up the hive today.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. You're starting at the bottom. Thank you.
I avoided saying it. You did it.
Yeah, bum first. All right, okay. So I'm going to say goodnight to everybody. Thank you very much for joining. It seems to me, you know, we've got a lot of donations coming in for the Boom Boom Fund, but it seems to me that we're missing out on one technological thing that is highly missing from Ukraine. We've got to start saving money now. We've got to start preparing full supply of tea strainers, it seems. So we'll be working on that one soon. Yeah. Yeah, false mustaches. So yeah, I'll say goodnight. And don't forget our other channels, the 42 show and 42 the Shills Live. So check those channels out. And we'll see you next time. Slava Ukraine, everybody.
From Slava. Good show, buddy. Sakai, what do you think there, dude?
Yeah, I came a little bit late, but this is a good panel, good stream. Thanks for being here, everyone. Thanks for continuing to support Ukraine. And I've said it many times, I'll say it again. Support for Ukraine, just remember it goes long term. Like you have no idea the immense amount of respect I have for people like Starsky, for example, who's been involved in this since before 2014. He was involved in the Revolution of Dignity, going back all the way back to then. Like, it's long term. So don't think next week, next month, next year. I want you to think about what you can be doing to help show support long term. Because, yeah, that's what we all got to. If you really,
that's what it's going to take.
That's what it's going to take. If you're really in for it, then you're in it for the long haul. Thank you for being here. Slava Ukraini.
Herom Slava.
Slava.
All right. Let's see. We'll go to Commander McMillan. What do you think there, buddy?
That was a really good show. We talked about a lot of very interesting things. Glad that we had these two new guests on.
Mm.
And I'll close with my usual admonition to everybody. Please contact your elected officials and continue to urge them that supporting Ukraine is important to you and you want to see that happen.
Yeah, I think even more now than ever, that is going to be a very, very needed thing.
So
local,
much.
regional, national forms of government. Get on that phone, write, email, the whole bit.
Yep.
Amen.
Yeah, really true.
Let's turn to Slavi then. What do you think, Slavi?
I'd like to thank the viewers on the Shills channel, also on my channel. Thanks so much. And to the panel, I know I learned a lot today. I kind of took a back seat. But keep supporting Ukraine. Keep sharing Ukraine news, Ukrainian stories. We need to keep being in the media now more than ever, if anything. Also, if you're new here, please subscribe to the Shills. Also, if you're new here, subscribe to channel Yaroshenko. And thank you so much. Slava Ukraini.
Rome Slava.
Slava.
Good words. Good words. All right. We'll go to James here. Give a little wrap up, and then we'll give Brian the last words of the show.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, everybody. Like once again, thank you to everybody who's come now, and I'd like to just ask if you'd like to support fiber optic drones in Ukraine and the development and manufacturing of those to help Ukraine win. Please go to my site, whyukraine.com. I've got a fundraiser going for that. And we might even turn it into a raffle. It's just going to be an ongoing fundraiser for the foreseeable future. And we're going to be adding to that. We're going to have just an innovation fund for R&D, technological development related to drones here in Ukraine. We're going to have a fundraiser for that as well, and some other things. To a couple of things real quick. So I'm going to try and do another live stream tomorrow in between Rick the Ukrainians, because my unit has a nonprofit here in Ukraine that they use for fundraising. One of the things that they're doing, in addition to buying equipment for our unit, is setting up a veterans support center here in Ukraine, which is so incredibly important for mental health and well-being. And we don't have veteran centers. There's no VA hospital. We do have universal health care, it's true. But as far as veteran support and all the things that are involved with that.
Right.
So I'm going to, my live stream tomorrow is going to be focused on that. I'm going to have videos of the progress of setting up this veteran center, and if people are interested in helping support that, I'm going to have a fundraiser for that open tomorrow. So wish me luck on that, guys. And then last thing, over the next 2 weeks, I am going to be doing interviews and live streams with Silicon Curtain, ATP Geopolitics, probably Greg Terry, possibly, and Rick the Ukrainian,
Cool.
along with Brian from Technology for Ukraine to support this initiative of integrating East and West. So cool stuff.
All right. And speaking of, we'll turn to Brian here. Give everybody a quick reminder of the group, what you're all up to, and thoughts before the end.
Yeah, we're Technology United for Ukraine. Technologyforukraine.com is our website. Go over there if you're an engineer, scientist, technologist, or anybody who wants to help out with the fundraising and social media. Please come work with me and James. So I want to get right into something here. I'll make it real quick. Remember, fiber optic drones are wanted by frontline troops, the frontline drone operators. They understand the immense benefits of these systems. So when you donate, you are donating directly to changing the battlefield. You are going to It's going to restructure the way it looks because they're going to be able to do things that were once a limitation for them. So please remember, 1 in 20 drones makes it through to a target. Let's bring that down to 10 in 20 or 15 in 20. Work with us. Stay involved with James here. Donate to these projects because we make practical weapon systems that make sense to Ukrainian troops.
Good words, man. Love it. Love it. Great having you here. So glad you could join. We'll get you on again. We'll help, spread the word, spread the message, and see if we can't, be supportive and helpful. Let's see here. Huge thanks to the team, because when you run a live show like this and you don't have a supporting team, you're screwed. We got an awesome supporting team. Today, we got Shayna on the Shills account. We got Liam Wakefield and Chris Lundy backing her up as well. Huge shout to the team, because without a team, it's not going to work. And a huge thanks to everybody in the chat for supporting, for showing up, for, donating, for spreading the word, and helping to do everything you can to keep Ukraine in the thoughts and minds of everybody around you. On that note, thanks for joining us, everybody. Slava Ukraine.
Jerome
Slava.
Bye.
Great.
It's over. Go home. Go.